Welcome to Typecasting.
Pop culture by the numbers. That's your host, Lucas Graydon, the Quicksilver to my Scarlet Witch.
Aww. I feel like I'm always dead when you give me a character.
Are you really?
I was just thinking about when you said I was your sacrifice for the Soul Stone.
I said I was your sacrifice. You just misinterpreted it.
We may have to replay those tapes. And that's your co-host, Mirjana Tumatua, who taught me everything I know about mutants in Marvel Comics.
Oh, I did, and I want everyone to know that. And if it's wrong, it's not my fault. Okay, here on Typecasting, two Enneagram Type 4s, our favorite, are having a spoiler-filled, packed, I might say, discussion of the best fictional characters and discovering where they fall on that Enneagram of personality.
There are a few ground rules here at Typecasting. Before we get started, let's review.
Rule number 1. Every type is beautiful.
Number 2, the Enneagram is a tool, it is not a box.
And we only type fictional characters. You are the authority on your own type.
Number 4, our favorite, we are not experts. Okay, Mirjana 2, I'm so excited. Let's jump right in this week with a few of the characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe who got their powers from the Infinity Stones. Kind of a weird category, but I'm going to say it makes sense. Okay, so number 1 is Wanda Maximoff, also known as the Scarlet Witch, although, fun fact, she has never been called the Scarlet Witch so far in the Marvel movies.
Oh my goodness, isn't it the same thing with Hawkeye?
Maybe. I feel like his official S.H.I.E.L.D. code name is Hawkeye, but I don't know if anybody ever says that out loud, so that's a good question.
Okay.
And also, fun fact I found that I thought was kind of funny about Wanda is that it's kind of a joke that throughout the Marvel movies, she starts in Age of Ultron with a very thick Eastern European accent being from Sokovia. And then as the movies go on, she just gradually loses it and suddenly has an American accent. But somebody higher up at Marvel than I came up with the clever excuse to say that she learned the American accent as an espionage technique while she was learning how to be a spy from Black Widow. So, you know what? I'll take it. We get to hear Elizabeth Olsen's more natural speaking voice, and I'm here for it.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So, Mirjana 2, why don't you kick us off by telling us what you think Wanda's number is?
Okay, folks at home, this was definitely the hardest one we've done so far. Wanda is so sweet and sincere, but I feel like she does a lot of growing from when we meet her. And so I feel like it's hard to figure out which one she is. And I also feel as though my number, which I guess I'll just go ahead and announce, I'm thinking she's probably a 2. But I felt a little weird about this because I also thought Black Widow was a 2. And I hate to do like the 2 women in the series as 2s. You know what I mean?
Totally. That makes sense.
But so I think like part of this is like on the writers that they really like deep into the maternal parts of these women. And later on, we do have another woman that I do not think is a 2. So that makes me feel better. But I do feel like it's a little bit challenging. So I did think she was a 2. So a couple of reasons why. So first of all, I thought of her sweet relationship with her brother. And we talked about this a little bit in Black Widow and the Boys. But her relationship with Clint is one of the most beautiful things in the Avengers and totally understated. And how they both lost their person, the one that they loved. And it really affected them. I think of specifically when she's like ultimately the one who kills Ultron before Vision like comes back. And he says,
Wanda, if you stay here, you'll die.
I just did. Do you know how it felt? felt like that.
And she feels the pain of her loss, and I feel like she also feels the pain of her loss of vision. And so it's hard to tell where that stems from, but I think she covets the people around her like nothing else, and she wants to be loved, but she also wants to be fiercely independent. They call her a kid like many times. I'm not sure how old she's actually supposed to be. So I feel like it's also hard for me because I know Scarlet Witch from the comics as Magneto's daughter. And that storyline, and I literally like love Scarlet Witch in her really amazing battle that she exemplifies like how challenging it is to deal with mental health and do your everyday tasks and kind of what that's like, and was a really real example for me growing up as a kid. So I feel like part of me is like, I think I'm gonna put her on a 2, but I feel like I said this a lot on our first one. I'm convinced I can be convinced of otherwise.
Okay. This is so funny because we have not discussed Wanda yet, but I had such a similar journey to you, like through some of the different numbers I had the exact same thought process on the 2, where I was like, okay, I feel like I'm getting a 2 vibe from Wanda, but also I feel like we just had Black Widow as a 2, and I don't want us to just pigeonhole all of these really strong women into the type 2. Not that there's anything bad about the type 2 at all. I just know that to type 2 is actually often the most commonly mistyped number for women when they are trying to find their type on the Enneagram, because societally and culturally, women are often taught that they have to be subservient and selfless and sacrificial and always helping and assisting others instead of kind of standing up for their own needs and desires. And so some women have learned those behaviors, and it takes some time to realize that, but deep down, I'm not actually a 2. And that's also beautiful, and that's also okay. So I was like, well, do I want just all of these like female Avengers to be type 2s? So I did have that similar hesitation where I was like, I don't know if I want to say Wanda is a 2. I can see it though. And I think for a lot of the same reasons you can, for her relationship with Quicksilver, that was something I really latched onto at first, just because we see throughout Age of Ultron how close they are. And so the first 2 numbers that kind of came to mind for me were either the 2 or the 6, because I think that 2s and 6s can both model really beautiful, tight-knit relationships. But I don't see a ton of 6 in Wanda. I think maybe a little bit. I think maybe the argument could be made, but I definitely felt the 2 more than the 6. But, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, because we do have those arrows of stress and security, and where we can kind of move across the circle in different areas. And like you said, Wanda has grown a ton. I don't think we see her in a ton of health in the very first movie that she's in Age of Ultron. So she's a bad guy for a good portion of that movie, and definitely operating kind of out of vengeance. But then we see her in a lot more state of peace kind of as we get to the end, especially after Endgame. Her and Hawkeye, I know we discussed it with Hawkeye a few weeks back, but I just love their scene together. So I wondered if maybe she was a type 8. Or so there is an arrow that connects the 2 and the 8. The 2 actually moves to 8 in stress, which may actually solidify my theory that she is a 2, because I think we see her being very type 8, and kind of really using her power in Age of Ultron especially. But maybe she's that 8 who in security has the really beautiful gifts of the 2, you know? Because I think she is one of the most powerful Avengers, and I think that the type 8, the Challenger, radiates power in a really effortless way, in a way that I think Wanda does. And 8s also love and protect fiercely. And when you were talking earlier about her independence and her need to be independent, especially I think in Civil War when Tony tries to keep her locked up, I think we can kind of see that desire to not be controlled, especially when you look at after losing her family and having her brother, they were experimented on. They were the only ones who survived those experiments, and they were kind of forced through that trauma in captivity. And so I can really see for her an aversion to that kind of control that maybe leads to the type 8 as well. What do you think?
Okay, I am aligned. I also believe I can definitely see the type 8. And I also just remembered how at the very end of Endgame, how she's the one who stands up to Thanos and gives him a run for his money.
Yes.
You know?
When she says, you took everything from me.
You took everything from me.
I don't even know who you are.
Oh, you will. Yes. Yes, it is. That's so good.
And
I love that.
He is so scared. He actually moves all the cannons towards the ground, even affecting his own troops. Like, he gives her, and I think, like, I feel that it's really strong. Another thing about eights that I think is, like, kind of overlooked is, like, sometimes I don't think that they get enough credit for being able to lean on people. Like, they do not love to be controlled, but I feel like they can be incredible teammates and really see other people's strengths. So I even think of all the times when she bands together, like, with the women, and they're, like, about to go for it, like, I'm like, yeah, like, I feel like she's a great teammate, but she also knows what she believes in, and, like, she's gonna take down one of the other strongest Avengers, Vision, just to, like, go fight for what she believes in.
Clint, you can't overpower me.
I know I can't. But she can.
Vision. That's enough. Let him go. I'm leaving.
I can't let you.
I'm sorry.
If you do this, they will never stop being afraid of you.
I can't control their fear. Only my own.
I also love, too, how she cares about Vision so much that she's up protecting Vision during Infinity War. She is like, this is my person. Like, you all can fight your war, but, like, I need to be by Vision's side. And then as the troops kind of come down, and as you were talking about, as she kind of teams up with the different women, and she finally comes down from Shuri's lab and just destroys those two giant ships from Thanos' army, and Okoye asks, why was she up there all this time? She, I think, just has some of the best displays of strength in those bigger Avengers movies in really, really awesome ways. I love her. It's super easy for me to just, like, fist pump and cheer. Especially, I remember in the Endgame premiere, like, cheering along for Wanda as she's ready to kind of exact that revenge. And, you know, as we're talking about it, and we've talked before about how eights can sometimes lean into that vengeance and also that need for justice. But when she does confront Thanos, she is 100% doing it for Vision. She is doing it out of that sense of, you took everything from me, and I am going to set that record straight. And I think that
exactly
I can see some of that type 8 in her. I'm kind of talking myself into it.
I mean, she does that for Ultron too. Like,
yes, exactly. After Quicksilver dies,
I feel like the vengeance. Yeah, like, I think that, like, and I think that's kind of actually, like, an interesting piece of being an 8 is, like, that yearning for vengeance. And, like, I'm not really sure where it comes from or how it fits into the rest of the Enneagram, but I'm, like, reading on the Enneagram Institute right now that that is a sign of 8s. So I'm like, okay, go off, girl. Like, you're doing that for your people.
Yes. I love it. And she does. She has her people. Like, she is a member of the Avengers, but she has Quicksilver, and then she has Vision, and she isn't maybe as social. Maybe social's not the right word, but I don't think she has those super far-reaching relationships. Like, she may be more withdrawn and in herself, and she chooses to open up to those select people.
Yeah. And I think, like, that's hard too, because it's like, you know, it's hard to get close to people when, first of all, you were tortured your whole childhood.
Yes.
And, like, in a lab. And then now you're, like, in a tower with a bunch of superheroes who are, like, significantly older than you. Like, I can see where, like, she's a little withdrawn. Don't think she's had a lot of opportunity to spread her social butterfly wings. I will say.
That is fair. That's fair. Okay, well, before we move on to our next character, let's kind of talk about the wing. So, do you think as an 8, she wings 7 or toward the 9?
Probably towards the 9.
I think I agree. For me, and I don't know if you have more thoughts about this, but for me, I am thinking back to that scene by the pond after Tony's funeral where she seems to finally have come to some sense of peace about Vision's death. And I think that we do see her kind of like coming into herself. She's not afraid to feel her emotions, you know, and that's a beautiful thing about the eights is that they do have really strong emotions, but she also is able to come to that place of understanding and peace that I think that Nine Wing can be helping her with. And I think I see that more than I see the 7.
I love that. Love it. Love it.
She's great.
Good for her. You know I love a good 8.
Okay, who's next?
Oh, gee, who is next? One of my favorite characters.
Really?
The Vision. Yes, you didn't know that?
I don't think I did.
Oh, I always cheer when he's on screen.
Oh, well then I'm excited to get into
this. I love his
this.
little prim and proper self.
Yes.
Yes. I wonder if he... Okay, well, we're talking about the Vision, folks at home, aka Jarvis in the past. I don't know if that's what... You know, he's an evolved Jarvis, you know?
Yes, I don't know if they can count as the same character or not, but I think it's a very interesting question when you look at... Obviously, Paul Bettany played Jarvis from Iron Man 1, and then they were like, okay, do you want to be on screen now? And now plays Vision? But are they the same character? He also has bits of Ultron in him and the Mind Stone, so I wonder...
And Tony.
Yes, and Bruce, that's true.
And Bruce. He says that. Okay, so in the comics, he gave himself the name Victor Shade because he was so sad that he didn't have a human name. Aww, poor Vision.
That's really sweet.
Interesting guy. Yeah, I love Vision. I love his sincerity and just like, I think he's just adorable. Okay, well, let's talk about him, Lucas. Tell me, what do you think his Enneagram is?
Okay, I am between maybe 2 different numbers. I don't even know if I'm like settled down on the numbers or if more like the areas, but I will say I could see somewhere between the 9 and the 1, somewhere up near the top of the circle, either the Peacemaker or the Reformer. And like you said, he is kind of prim and proper. I think he's also very pragmatic. I think we see the most of Vision's character in Civil War, and I like the speech that he gives about...
In the 8 years since Mr. Stark announced himself as Iron Man, the number of known enhanced persons has grown exponentially. And during the same period, the number of potentially world-ending events has risen at a commensurate rate.
He's saying it's our fault?
I'm saying there may be a causality. Our very strength invites challenge. Challenge incites conflict. And conflict breeds catastrophe. Oversight. Oversight is not an idea that can be dismissed out of hand.
And I think throughout that scene, we see him taking a very logical, rational, thoughtful approach that I think can be very indicative of either that Type 9, the Peacemaker, who can really kind of step back and have an objective view of things. He doesn't get angry in the way that a lot of people do in Captain America Civil War. He is very much kind of thinking things through. And when it comes to blows, he will join the fight, but he's never kind of operating from his emotions, I don't think. I don't think we see a ton of strong emotions from him. So I wondered about somewhere up in the 9 or the 1. Or, and this is, I think, where I've actually landed on for some similar reasons, is the Type 5. I know we've obviously had...
You just switched.
like I said, I was between kind of 2 areas on the Enneagram. So I was between either that 9 Wing 1 area or the 5 area. So I'm a little bit torn. I could see the 5 just because he did start his life as a computer program. He is very pragmatic and logical and thinks things through and has just, I think, such deep thoughts and an ability to really like sit in his thoughts that I do see as typical of a Type 5. And so, and Vision kind of reminds me of one of my best friends who is a type 5. And so I do have, I think, some of that coloring my opinion here, but I think I'm landing on the type 5, but I could be convinced of the 9. I could be convinced of the 1. I'm down for the conversation. So where did you come with Vision at?
Okay, when you said 9-wing 1, I was like, oh wait, I can totally see that. But I came in strong 5-wing 4.
Right? Okay.
Mostly because he didn't start his life. Like, I feel like just the Mind Stone. I think that's what 5s bring to the table, is this amazing skill and knowledge. Like, they just soak everything up. They know what's going on, and their ability to analyze information, and especially when they have that wing 4 and make it relevant and be thoughtful. And I think that's like the difference between Ultron and Vision, right? Like, Vision has heart. Yeah. And like, he has that wing 4
my mind
that like makes him empathetic. I was literally like, wait,
whoa.
When you were saying the 9, I was like, wow, beautiful. But I'm like, hear me out though. Like, I think he's a 5-wing 4. Which one of my good friends is also a 5-wing 4, and I'm sure is the same person. And I can totally see that. And I also, like, we should call them up and tell them to be Wanda and Vision for Halloween.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. That is a must.
That's a must. I hope they hear this and are knowing that it's that. So I think that, like, Vision is just so empathetic. I just think of him, like, at the end of his life, right? When he is telling Wanda, you know what, it's right, it's my time to go. I'm happy to make this sacrifice. He always was ready to make that sacrifice because he understands the calculated risk, but he's still like, he loves her and he loves his team.
When he tells
lets
her,
them try.
When he tells her, I only feel you, because she has to destroy the stone.
It's not fair. It shouldn't be you, but it is. It's all right. You could never hurt me. I just feel you.
Good.
I just got chills. Like, I think you have such a great argument for that wing 4 too, because I mentioned, like, he may not display a lot of his emotions on his sleeve, but he has them, and he has that deep connection with Wanda. And I love that you mentioned too, he is ready from the beginning. He's willing to make that sacrifice play. And Captain America is the one who tells him, we don't trade lives. But from the beginning, Vision is willing to make that sacrifice, which we could have that conversation with Steve. We could sit him down and talk about how he traded his life at the very end of his first movie. He's been trading lives from the beginning, but
he's been and like, I feel like that was a lot of lives. I'm like,
yes, it was.
Like, I feel like you could trade some lives.
It was
like
half
one
of
for, like,
the universe.
Yeah. First of all, half the universe when it didn't work out, but before that, you know, it was even like just all of Wakanda like fighting. Okay, think about that, and I'm like,
yes.
Steve, like, people are dying by like these alien creatures. Like, figure it out later. Anyway. Yes, indeed.
And my mind is still blown at that connection you made to Vision being the 5-wing 4. I am 100% sold. That is maybe my favorite typing that we have done so far, especially because you're right. We were talking about the same friend, and he is a 5-wing 4, and I see a lot of Vision in him, and I see a lot of him in Vision, and I love it. I love it.
Me too. I do 100% believe that Vision is a 5-wing 4.
Okay. Now, I'm excited to get into our next character. She may be a little controversial. Just a heads up, but I think she's awesome. I loved her first movie, and she is, if we're counting Vision as alive, which the whole WandaVision thing, the jury is still out. We're not really sure what's going on there, but these are the 3 characters who are still alive. Rest in peace, Quicksilver, to be imbued with the power of an Infinity Stone. Up next is the Space Stone. The Tesseract actually gave Carol Danvers her powers as Captain Marvel. So I hope there are some listeners out there who are as big of fans of the Marvel TV shows as I am. And because Carol Danvers was actually originally going to be a lead in the Jessica Jones series back when it was set to air on ABC, like when they were first developing it. Instead of being on Netflix, it was going to be on ABC, and it was going to be called AKA Jessica Jones. And she was going to be Jessica Jones' best friend like she is in the comics.
I did not know that. And I'm curious, when you said she was controversial, did you mean between us or like in the world?
Oh, I totally meant in the world.
But we disagree also a little bit.
Maybe a little bit. We'll see. I feel like we have not... I feel like I don't remember our disagreements, if I'm honest.
I just do not like Brie Larson.
Ah, okay. I was going to say, it's been a while since we've discussed the movie, so I'm excited to get into it with her character.
Yes, me too. All right, well, shall I kick us off?
Yes, what do you think Carol's number is? I have a feeling we're going to be on the same page here, but I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Oh, yes. I think that she is an 8. I think she absolutely hates being controlled by others. Like, I think that her entire arc is like, you guys were faking this whole thing, and like, I'm just gonna kill everyone. Like, I think that she wants to save the universe. I think also she cannot believe she got duped. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I feel as though she also just like seeing her story from like a little girl on, and just like how she never stopped and just always pushed herself forward and kept going. And like in the face of battle, like part of me is like, I want to give her 3 because I think we do owe like the 3 is a really good, like strong lead. But I'm like, girl, this girl is an 8. Like she protects herself. She protects the one she loves, and she will stop at nothing to do that. And she is just so self-reliant, and she resists weakness in every way. And she's going to wake up at the crack of dawn to be the best pilot and to be the best soldier that she can be, and she's amazing. Love her.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think you are totally right. Hit it right on the money. She has, I think, such a beautiful origin story in her self-titled movie for the Type 8 about understanding that her emotions make her stronger, not weaker, and about kind of freeing herself from these chains that she didn't even realize she was in from the Kree. And I love the end of her movie when Jude Law, Jan Rog, her commander, the Kree, is telling her to power down, and he's telling her to stop using her powers and to face him one-on-one like she should and prove to him that she can beat him.
I always told you, you'll be ready the day you can knock me down as yourself. This is that moment. This is that moment, Beers. Turn off the light show and prove to me you can beat me without...
I have nothing to prove to you.
It is just such a great thesis statement of the movie, I think, and she spends the whole movie not having anything to prove to anyone else. She is fully her own self. She is independent and confident in who she is in, I think, such a beautiful way that represents the Type 8, and I love her. And I think that it's not a coincidence that both Wanda and Carol, who I think can easily be pointed at as 2 of, if not the 2 most powerful Avengers in the whole Marvel universe, are also Type 8s, because I think power is just such a good word for the Type 8.
That's a good point. All right, well, what do you think about her wing?
Oh, she is such an 8-wing 7. The way that she likes to give Nick Fury crap when they're on their little adventure about how S.H.I.E.L.D. is a covert operation that puts their logos on everything. And she's just kind of cheeky and snarky. She likes to talk back to her commanding officer when they're fighting bright and early in the morning. I think she just has some of that like joy and lightheartedness that you really see from that Wing 7. I'm thinking about even the flashbacks to the bar that she and Maria Rambeau, her best friend, used to go to and sing karaoke and have a bunch of fun. I just think that she also has that Wing 7 that really connects with the childlike joy of Monica Rambeau, or Lieutenant Trouble, as she's also known. And she, I think it's that little Wing 7 in her that's like, here, you can pick out my colors on my costume before I go save the day. You know, she's like there for the fun too.
Yes, I totally agree. Well, I even just think of her flashback when like the world comes back to her and she's like at a bar and like having a great time.
Exactly.
And, like
yes.
every time I'm like, oh yeah. And I think like she needs that like as a part of her drive to like go for it. You know what I mean? And the 7 of just like, I think the 8 gives her the resilience and the 7 gives her the like, okay, I'm not going to care about it for a second. I'm just going to like go for it and try and see what happens. And like that's how she ends up in space with like with a regular airplane.
Yes, and I also think that she has fun. Like when she's using her powers, she's like having a good time. Like once she finally embraces it, she's like enjoying it. She knows what she came to do and she's here to do it. And I don't think that we see in her the same when I think about Wanda's biggest feats of strength, like when she almost defeats Thanos in Endgame, she's definitely motivated by her rage and her vengeance and her grief. Whereas Carol's just, I mean, she is there to get stuff done because she knows that the fate of the universe is in her hands, but also she's there because she knows she can and she's not afraid to show it, you know? Like I think she just has. I'm thinking now about how Peter Parker's supposed to give her the gauntlet.
Hi, I'm Peter Parker.
Hey, Peter Parker. You got something for me?
I don't know how you're gonna get us through all that.
Don't worry. She's got help.
She's just like, yeah, hi. Like, I'm here smirking on the battlefield, kind of making new friends, laughing at this little kid who is out here just being his Peter Parker self. But yeah, I think she is a beautiful 8-wing 7.
Yeah, I would like, part of me is like, is she a 7-wing 8? But I think I can settle in the 8-wing 7 until we have a sequel. Because I'm like, now I'm like, that's a lot of fun.
Right,
she's a 7-wing 8.
And I'm thinking about her, as I think about her relationship with Monica, and kind of that parental but like friend, she's like the fun aunt, I think, for Monica, and I think like fun aunt energy kind of has that like 7 vibe to it, so that's interesting. But you're right, we have only had one solo movie with her and she's only been in Endgame other than that, so maybe we need to get to Captain Marvel 2 before we have a better idea of which side of that divide she falls on.
Absolutely. I think so. I think we'll have to wait until our next movie, the next film. Well, Lucas, look at us. That was a hard one. I feel like sometimes I knew what we were talking about, and then other times I was like, whoa, I don't know.
I know. I feel like I am smarter after this episode somehow. Like, I feel like we really dug into it.
Yes, I totally agree. Okay, so if you want some more Enneagram fun, you can always follow us at Typecasting Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Or, I don't think there was much conflict today you had to email us about, but if you have some suggestions for later down the road, or you just want to say hey to me and not Lucas because I'm the favorite, you can email us at typecastingpod@gmail.com, and our website is typecastingpod.com.
Yes, and if you want to find Mirjana2 or I on the internet, you can find Mirjana2 on Twitter at Mirjana2__.
And it's like the literal number 2. Like, I feel like it's not Enneagram. Like, it's not Mirjana2, the word's the number 2.
Like it's Mirjana the number 2, because you're like a type. You're not a type 2, but I see where the confusion could come
in. Exactly.
Or on Instagram at Mirjana the number 2, literally like the integer, the digit 2 on Instagram. And you can find all of my socials and contact at lucasgraydon.com. And I'm so excited for next week when we get to talk about some of the smallest heroes of San Francisco by the numbers.